Welcome to Accidental Gods, to the podcast where we believe another world is still possible, and that together we have the power to make it happen. I didn't grow up thinking I'd be part of the generation that would give itself the capacity to trigger species-level destruction. I don't imagine you did either, but this is where we are, accidental gods, living in the midst of a climate and ecological emergency that dwarfs any of the social or cultural or political upheavals that are tearing apart our communities and our nations. And yet, by the very nature of our complexity and our chaos, we are also potentially on the brink of change. Back in the 80s, there was a Nobel laureate called Ilya Prigozhin who studied complex systems, and we are a complex system. And what he found was that the complexity of complex systems increases up to a certain point, beyond which there's a bifurcation. And the system either descends from there into chaos and ultimately to extinction, or it spontaneously reorganizes itself, emerging to a higher order, to something new and unpredictable. And that's what we're after, this emergence from complex systems into an unpredictable new state. Because this is us. We, our culture, our civilization, our globally connected vast population, in all our chaos and our complexity, we are hurtling towards a cliff edge. And we could choose the long drop to extinction. Obviously we could. But we could also choose to make of this moment a launchpad to something completely different, to a radical new way of being, to the next evolutionary step. And this is our proposition to you. We know that evolution happens under moments of intense pressure, and that this moment, in so many ways, is about as intense as it gets. Certainly, it's as intense as we ever want it to get. So if we're ever going to evolve, now would be a really good time to do it. The thing is that up until now, evolution has been physical. It's been unplanned and unconscious and slow. It takes generations for changes to work their way through, and we don't have generations. But things are different now. Just as we have brought the world to the brink of chaos and crisis, we have also reached a turning point in our own growth where we could choose to make the next evolutionary step one of consciousness. This is not a tweak to our genes. It's not even a tweak to our way of being or the systems that we live in. It's a transformation so complete that it makes the change from a chrysalis to a butterfly look obvious, which it's not, except in retrospect. And this is the thing about emergence from complex systems. What emerges is completely unpredictable from the perspective of everything that came before, which means we can't tell you where we're going, and nor can anybody else. It may be a cliche that no problem is solved from the mindset that created it, but it's still true. If we could envisage where we need to get to, it wouldn't be a big enough change to make it worth going from where we are. So, we need to get to a place we don't know and can't imagine. And yes, that's not going to be easy. If it were, we'd be there already. But it's not impossible, people. This is the thing we need to take on board, that emergence from complex systems happens. It is a thing. It's many things. It's not just a butterfly emerging from the DNA soup of a chrysalis. It's eukaryotic cells emerging from prokaryotic soup and everything that comes out of it. In fact, the whole of the evolution of consciousness up to this point is full of systems in chaos where extinction looked likely and something new emerged. The only difference now is that we're choosing to do it. Because we can. Because now, for the first time in the evolution of human consciousness, our understanding of ourselves allows this. The studies of neuroscience, of neuroplasticity, neuropsychology, neuropsychoimmunology, these are all in genuine exponential growth. We learn more each year about how our minds and our consciousness work than the sum of all the previous years. That's the working definition of exponential. And what all this teaches us is that our neuronal architecture is plastic, and that this plasticity is under our own control, which is to say that we, the 21st century members of humanity, can actively choose to change the architecture of our own brains. I'm going to say that again because it really matters. We can, if we want badly enough, if we learn how, choose to change the physical wiring and the chemical environment of our own brains. We can choose what we think. We can choose what we feel. And the combination of these two, choosing to change what we think and change how we feel moment by moment, hour by hour, day by week, by month, by year, can change the internal physical structures of our brains. We just need to have a template, a structure of what we want to do and how we want to do it for as far ahead as we can see in the road. And that's what this is for. This Accidental Gods podcast and the entire membership portal that supports it. We want to create the template for change, to set up structures that anyone can follow to get as far along this road as we can see. Anyone. Everyone. Because this has to be a co-creation. This isn't one person, or a handful of us, or even hundreds of us, meditating in a retreat somewhere for a couple of weeks, or months, or years. This is about lots of us. Lots and lots of us, doing the work day by day, month by month, year by year, supporting each other, growing, evolving, seeing further down the road to the point where the breakthrough to conscious evolution is one final iteration of the stuff we're already doing. And if we don't make it, then at least we tried. It's possible that we're here now, alive on this planet, simply to be the best that we can be, and that's enough. I don't believe this is the case, and we can look why that I don't believe that some other time. But really, the point of this, the thing I want you absolutely to take away, is that if we do this, the worst that can happen is that we become the best of ourselves. That's the worst. And the best that can happen is that together, the whole that we become is so, so much greater than the sum of our individual parts. We become the system, and we emerge, and we create the conscious evolution. So, this is us, the Accidental Gods. As far as we understand it, and our thinking is pretty much bound to evolve, that's part of the process, there are 4 clear steps to our conscious evolution, and we all need to gain a basic working level of competence in each of them if we're going to make the leap. So first, we need to connect. We need to connect fully, deeply, authentically with the rest of the web of consciousness with which we share this planet. This is about building reciprocal relationships so that we can ask for help and so that help can be asked of us. Getting to this, the core part of this, is that we have to let go of the idea that as human beings, we must have all of the answers. Or even the idea that we could have all of the answers. We absolutely don't, and we can't. But we spent the last few hundred years of the scientific paradigm thinking that we do, and we can, and we must, and that we can, if we just sit down and meditate that little bit more, or think that little bit more deeply, or create a new layer of philosophy, we will think ourselves out of this mess. There are whole corners of the internet devoted to conscious evolution which believe this. And we think this is not true. We are surrounded by a web of conscious life, from the rocks to the trees, to the rain, to the rivers, to the hawks flying over the mountain, to the mountain itself. And we are a part of this web, with this collective intelligence that can point us where we need to go if we can take our place in it. There was a time when humanity lived in context with the earth, and we need to rediscover this. Or maybe we need to invent it anew. We are not who we were, and we can't go back. We need to keep moving forwards. So we think that this too, this reconnection, this connecting, this building of reciprocal relationship will emerge as something new. But we'll use old techniques to get to it, some of it. In parallel with this, and these two have to go together, we need to do the work that lets us build a clean, clear intent, which means we need to be able to set aside our egos, our judgments of self and other, our fear, and all that arises from these things. We need, basically, to sort out our own stuff. That's not easy, but it's also part of becoming the best of ourselves. And there are age-old and new strategies for this as well. And when we've got these two in place, we need to be able to ask for help of the web of consciousness in a way that feels genuinely authentic and that yields coherent, constructive answers. This is going to take practice. No relationship springs up fully formed overnight, and the relationships that matter are the ones that we work on. That's true here more than anywhere else. So we need to build the relationships. We need to do the work on ourselves. We need to really learn how to make connections with the web of consciousness. And then we need to be able to let go of everything that we believe to be true. I'll say it again, it's still a cliche, it's still true, that no problem is solved from the mindset that created it. So in the words of just about every spiritual system on the planet, we need to be able to make the empty-handed leap into the void, so that in this space of unknowing, in this space of absolutely being without thought, with all that we have is that sense of asking for help, we can then ask for the help that we need to transform. We can say, I am here, ready, clear, waiting to play my part in whatever needs to happen. Tell me what you need me to do. So all of this is easy to say, and it's not quite so easy to do. We do know this. It's been a year since the germ of this idea arose in our winter solstice sit with the fire. As I'm recording this, we're winding down to the winter solstice of this year, of 2019. It's been a really tumultuous year. But for us, a huge part of it has been working out how to bring this idea to the world in a way that makes sense, in a way that people can do. How can we break this into steps that are doable by anyone who wants to be part of the change? So this is what we're offering. There will be this opening series of, we think, 6 podcasts, which will outline the steps on the way in more detail. This is the introduction to what we're offering, how we see it working, why we're doing what we're doing, and where we think we're going. Carrying on after that series, we want this space, the podcast, to evolve into something broader. The concepts of conscious evolution are huge and wide and diverse, and we want to explore them all. So we want this to become a meeting point of science and spirituality, of psychology and philosophy, of activism and politics, of art and creativity, and all of the ideas in the growing field of consciousness studies. We want to talk to people who are on parallel paths, so that we can bring in other ideas and thoughts and ways of being and ways of connecting, because this is not a zero-sum race, where we need to get there ahead of everyone else. That's pretty much the definition of old paradigm thinking. This is a joint venture with all of humanity. And just because we find certain ways of honing intent useful, doesn't mean that you will. But if we explore enough, there will be something that really clicks for you, for each of you, and we are going to find that. Beyond the podcast, the membership portal offers the structure and guidance that you need to make all the steps we talked about. So to start off with, there's a growing suite of meditations and visualizations in clear, defined steps to help you build the deep connection and the clear intent that we need to start off with. We're going to have tools to help you hardwire the habits of connection so that pausing to listen, to ask questions, and hear answers of and from the world around us becomes second nature. At the point when you walk out of the door, look up and greet the rain as an old friend, we'll all know that we're on the right path. And then when we have these down, we'll move on to asking for help and making the leap into the void. But this is not a race, and we want to make sure we have a cohort of competence before we step off into those places. In the meantime, helping us to get there will be regular webinars and an online forum, and dotted throughout the year there will be live courses so that we can build a community of peers, of explorers, so that we can support each other as we discuss controversial ideas and find ourselves at the edges of our comfort zones. Because people, if this doesn't take us to the edges of ourselves, then we're not doing it right. The edges are the place where real change happens. So that's it for our first podcast. In the next one, we'll go more deeply into the first of the 4 steps, the building of relationship. In the meantime, thank you for listening this far. Thank you to Caro C for the music and for being our absolutely stellar sound engineer. And thank you to Faith Tilleray for designing the website, for being an all-round tech guru, and for being the co-creator of this idea. All of the ideas that come into this podcast, Faith and I designed together. If you want to read more, or if you want to join up to the membership program, you will find us at accidentalgods.life. That's all the W's, accidentalgods.life on the web. And at some point soon, we'll be at Accidental Gods on social media too. If you like the sound of all we have planned, please subscribe to the podcast. That way you'll get the rest of the series. 5 stars and a review on the podcast app of your choice would be lovely, because it helps us spread the word. And the way we're going to change the world is by sharing what's important to us with the people we care about. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, tell the people you meet at the supermarket, tell your local Extinction Rebellion group and the activists you meet at the meetings. Tell everyone and anyone who wants to be the best that they can be and to be part of something collective that could become better than anything we are just now. We can do this, people. We can take the next step. Come along for the ride. It's going to be fun. So until the next time, goodbye. Go out and find the website, accidentalgods.life. And thank you.